Let's dive into this, the resurrection.
Yeah. Acts 1, chapter 3, has this. We read this. If we've grown up in church, we read this stuff and we're just like, oh yeah, next. This is not a big deal. But it says something absolutely insane. Like if you're not used to the Christian faith or this idea of resurrection, verse 3, he presented himself alive after suffering. Many infallible proof during being seen by them during 40 days and speaking of the things pertaining to the kingdom of God. And I just think it's good to pause and just say, man, resurrection's weird. Like dead people stay dead. They don't come alive again and walk around and teach and eat and hang out with people. They don't do that.
Yes, very uncommon, you would say. We're speaking, obviously, most people would have clicked here about Jesus. And this is post him going to the cross, right? And them going to the tomb. The tomb is empty. It's interesting. On Sunday, Lloyd, who was preaching at our church, he was talking about how the resurrection is everything.
Yes.
Right? And he was like, it's kind of odd. Well, that Christians have a symbol of a cross, on a necklace, or they get it tattooed or whatever. The emblem is the cross, and he's like, but really, it should be the empty tomb. He's like, because that is the crux of everything. He's like, but it's quite hard to have a cave as a necklace.
He's like, stone. They have the stone that rolled away.
Yeah, well, exactly. He's like, how do you? He's like, I get that the cross is easier to make, but he's like, really, it's the empty tomb that is the resurrection of God of Jesus is the center of the faith.
It is, and they go quite nicely together,
Well, yeah, you can't have one without the other,
right,
But he's like, Jesus just dying is not the full story.
Totally. And it's got so much significance for the risen body, the healed, transformed body. It has, I like to say technically, discontinuity and continuity to his other body, to his body beforehand, before the resurrection. So he could be recognized, but they were slow to recognize him. He still had the nail holes and the wounds. So there was continuity, but it was different to when Lazarus was raised back to life. Because that kind of life that Lazarus was raised back to, he died again, Yep. So this is a new kind of life, an undying, indestructible, glorified body with some continuity to the old. That blows your mind, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What's the significance around the eating and chatting?
Yeah.
He sat, when we think about eating and chatting as a community, as a village, we get together. That's how we have a good time.
That's right.
Eat and gather around food. What is that significance of putting it in there?
It's hinted at, like the first epistle of John opens with these words, that from the beginning which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked upon, our hands have handled concerning the word of life. These epistles later on are concerned with countering this teaching called Gnosticism, which was associated with a belief that Jesus' body didn't matter so much. So he ate and drank with people to show that he wasn't just a ghost. He wasn't just a spirit. Because people, as the generations went on, there was this movement called Gnosticism that prioritized ideas, the knowledge, and would separate spiritual things from physical things. So you could do whatever you wanted to do with the body, as long as your spirit was safe and protected. And so the emphasis here is like, no, I'm alive again. Yeah. I have a body. I'm eating and drinking with you. What you do with your body matters because it's risen and glorified.
When Jesus appears to people after he's been crucified and the stone is rolled away, there's this period right between sort of Easter and Pentecost where there's 40 days where he's appearing to people. How many people does he appear to? Like how many people does he say hello to, stop by, meet with?
There's the Marys. There's the two on the road to Emmaus. There's Peter. I love the story of the road to Emmaus. But Paul actually says at one point in his letters up to 500 people.
Whoa.
So like this is unbelievable. And it occurs to me, people often say, because it mentions infallible proofs, many infallible proofs, right? In Acts 1:3. We often say today, well, wouldn't it be nice to have a video camera? Back in the day. But now that we have AI, even a video, we could call that fake.
Wow, look, we've got plenty of videos of Bigfoot, and some people still don't believe.
So actually what we have in these ancient documents, these reports, are really the best, strongest evidence that we can have. Evidence will never get you all the way to belief. You do have to also have faith, but it's faith based on evidence. You know, like Luke, who's writing Acts, is actually a proper historian for his day. There were conventions around historiography.
Yeah, perfect.
Something like
you
that.
nailed it. Yeah,
I got there in the end.
Almost.
But I love Luke's intro to his first gospel, his first writing. He says, many have taken in hand to set a narrative of those things which are most surely believed among us. He's probably referring to Mark and Matthew, which he's used and incorporated. It says, just as those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word delivered them to, as it seemed good to me also, having had perfect and complete understanding of all things from the very first, to write to you an orderly account. So Luke is really taking the best of what was coming before, applying his knowledge as a doctor or physician, a historian, and he's writing this amazing history of what's happened. And it's like the attention to detail is absolutely incredible in these Gospels.
That's a lot to take in this morning, DC.
Mate, changes the world.
What is with, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a number of instances where people don't recognize Jesus straight away when he sort of appears to them. And he's kind of with them, but they don't really notice that he's there. But I'm like, I feel like if you passed away...
Yes.
And then you were around again, I'd notice pretty quick.
Right.
That's odd. Did he look different? Or,
yes.
Yeah, so like why is that?
Yeah, it's like you get these weird, strange stories. Like in the garden afterwards, Mary thinks that he's the gardener. You know, we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you can imagine a movie of that scene. You can imagine him kind of turn slightly away and like, you know, she's not she's not like literally like face to face with him. You can imagine how they would depict it, right? We don't know. We theologically and biblically, we know again continuity and discontinuity. He was the same Jesus that was glorified. What I find really interesting, I mean, you get this long conversation that would have taken a few hours at least on the road to Emmaus in Luke 24. And they were kept from knowing him, it says. Now, we don't know if he had his hood pulled over. You know, there were shadows on his face.
How are you guys today?
We don't know. But the cool thing is that one perspective is that you're just not expecting to see him again. You know,
that is true.
You're not looking for him.
Yeah,
you know?
No, that's true.
You're not expecting to see him, and so, but when they get to their house and he decides to stay with them, and he blesses the bread. And he takes it and he blesses and he starts to give it and it starts to do these acts that we celebrate around communion. They're like, oh my gosh, they knew him, you know. So these resurrection stories are just weird. And as Christians, we have to, as the agnostic, almost Christian historian Tom Holland says, we have to be always those who are prepared to believe weird things, because that's actually where the difference in the power is.
But also,
in what's weird.
Happy are those who have not seen,
Come on.
yet still believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very nice, DC.
Well, yeah, I mean, for most of us, we weren't in that 500.
Yeah.
I wasn't there.